Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is George Armistead, and we are back with another episode of Life List, a birding podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Alvaro Jaramillo. Alvaro, what's going on?
Hey, doing well here. Do you get that sense? You know how fall begins in different times depending on who you are, what you do. But for the birder, fall begins on July 1st.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
It's sort of like the migrants start with the shorebirds. We're sort of seeing long-billed curlew flying by the other day, and things are kind of showing up. Young gulls that are, you can sort of see winter gull watching is just around the corner. Feeling that fall vibe already, even though it's still summer.
Absolutely feeling the same thing. Just back from a good bunch of travel here, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But yeah, I got back, and all of a sudden there's juveniles in places like where they weren't before. And I'm talking about birds that have fledged but actually moved from breeding areas. We see chipping sparrows around here. They nest around here kind of, but they don't nest like right in my yard. And there's like juvenile chipping sparrows, and there's flocks of common grackles going over with juveniles and adults that are on the move. And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, man, there's a lot of stuff that's pretty much done and starting to move around already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Chipping sparrows are interesting. How does it work? Like the eastern chipping sparrows and western ones have a totally different migration timing. And here, I don't know if in the east they do this, but here some of the chipping sparrows move in their stripy plumage, the juvie stripy plumage, and you'll see them out of range. Even like they've landed on boats, on pelagics with this stripy plumage, and you're like, what is that thing? And I think in the east they hang in, they molt and do all this, so they have a later migration, way later than do you hear? Sort of interesting.
Yeah, there's not many sparrows that migrate in juvenile plumage in this side. But yeah, I've been seeing them around. Actually, it's fun in August and September. I associate it more going around trying to photograph these juvenile sparrows because they're quite beautiful, but they can be a real challenge. Really tricky to identify.
Yeah, we have Savannah sparrows and actually white crowns that breed right at the end of my street. But the Savannah sparrows are all over the place. The juvies, some of them are actually golden yellow, like all over, and others are kind of more like the adults with just a little bit of yellow in the face, and others gray. Like they're super variable. Like you can see why people who are starting with birds, if they go birding at this time of the year between juvie birds and
molting
worn gulls and stuff,
you're molting adults,
molting adults and migrant shorebirds that are all disheveled. You'd be like, this birding thing's tough. It's like, just wait till things kind of settle down later on in the fall and winter, then you'll be fine.
That's right. Yeah. No, it is. I mean, I think we all love fall migration because of the volume of birds. You get all the and the how dramatic it is. But you've got all these youngsters, which effectively sometimes double the number of birds you're seeing. But man, they can be confusing. So there has been a little bit of that going on.
Yeah, I do think that the classic Peterson's, when he proposed that the warblers were these confusing fall warblers, and he put a page of them on there, I think that he did a disservice there. I think that a lot of them aren't that confusing. And if you can concentrate on their shapes and other aspects of their facial patterns and tail patterns and other things, they're not that confusing. And we've essentially been bought this idea that they're really tough.
Confusing fall warblers.
Yeah. There's just a few that are kind of tough.
Yeah.
But most of them really aren't. So I would say, I would put that in people's heads. Go out there in the fall thinking the warblers actually aren't that confusing. I'll just,
Yeah.
I'll sort through them.
You got your bay poles, you got your morning verse Connecticut. And maybe a couple others like pine warbler can be confusing at kind of any time, but you're right. A lot of
yellow throat and mourning. There's some that are like that's a
really tricky. Yeah.
Yeah. But the average, I don't know. I mean, if you think about it, there's a lot of them just kind of stay the same. Red start, Canada warblers are kind of some duller than others. Even, magnolias, they're all pretty. There's dull ones in the fall, but they've got the magnolia look and the tail and the whole thing.
And even
Nashvilles,
like chestnut-sided warbler looks different, but man, they're distinctive,
Yeah, and they stick up their tail. Watch for that. So there's a lot of stuff that doesn't actually change that much. And there's a few, like you said, blackpoll, bay poles, the bay-breasted blackpoll. I've never actually had the situation of to see. I mean, I used to see ceruleans more in the spring, fall. They used to leave pretty early, but that fall cerulean and Blackburnian issue, I've never actually had to deal with that in the field. But
never to my knowledge have I had that issue. But I've seen precious few ceruleans in the fall, and they do seem to scoot pretty quick.
They just leave.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, I got to go to Diego's house in Colombia pretty quick. Yeah. So they're like, they're out of here.
Head for the coastal range of Venezuela and Colombia. Yeah. Yeah. No, it'll be cool. I mean, it's true. Like I think it's well established on this podcast that I do not like summer around here, really. I love winter. I always talk about how I like it cool and crisp. And we are really entering my least favorite season here. July and so I'm happy to be going away soon. Again, I'm headed for the coffee region, the coffee triangle of Colombia in a couple weeks here on a Hillstar Nature tour with some friends, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
And then I get back and I'll be in this region, but we'll be doing some birding with a bunch of young birders, which I'm real excited about. And but yeah, I'm not a big fan of the still humid, hot weather that we get here. It's it's like you take a shower to try to clean up from the humidity. You feel like you're walking through soup all the time around here this time of year. And just the toweling off process itself sort of seems to warrant a whole other shower. It's just
you're grossing me out now.
Yeah, that was probably a little more detail than was warranted, but still, you get the idea. It's just humidity here. It's like 90, usually often over 90% heat, over 90% humidity, and it's just like, man, bring on the cold fronts.
Yeah, I mean, like you probably know, here on the coastal part of California, nobody has air conditioning. There's no need.
Right. That's unimaginable to me.
It's never hot enough. It gets humid. Like we get this little humid thing, but it's never hot enough for it to be a problem, although, some of the old timers here kind of complain now that in the evening, sometimes you can't sleep because it's a little muggy, but it's like, we're not even talking 10% compared to like Philadelphia in summer.
Right.
It's just more complaining because people have zero experience here with that. So,
right. It's just different. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about the coffee triangle. In Spanish, they call it the eje cafetero, which means like the axis of coffee. Doesn't that sound like weird? Like weirdly like, whoa, or
it sounds a little scary.
I know.
Yeah.
Coffee triangle sounds better.
I was going to say it sounds a little like Bermuda Triangle, but but the axis of coffee also, like it does, it's got some connotations that are maybe less than desirable.
Yeah.
For Americans.
Right. The axis of coffee. You know who you are. Colombia.
Yeah. It sounds like Colombia and Brazil or something have entered into some agreement by which they're going to take over all of
Yeah.
the.
Yeah, they're gonna fix coffee prices like OPEC, the
Oh,
OPEC of
gosh.
coffee.
Yeah,
It's gonna be called OKEC. I don't know. Yeah.
terrifying prospect.
Terrifying. Can you imagine?
So, Alvaro, I think you need to tell the good people what you've been up to lately, man. Where have you been? What have you been seeing?
So I did a tour to Galapagos, which Galapagos was the first trip we did post, so that we actually were able to do last year, so when we just had a couple of trips. So Galapagos is still, in fine form, given that it's an island, in terms of COVID and everybody's vaccinated there. They actually handle it really well. But this year, so people often ask, like, why do you go to Galapagos at this time of year? Because it's the cold water time, so the snorkeling's a little bit more.
You got the garua.
You've got the coastal kind of clouds. You don't have the rain, but it's colder, and whatever, people not complain, but it's like, you have to put on a wetsuit maybe if you're cold sensitive to go snorkeling. But it's really good for seabirds, right? That's the time that the albatross are doing their stuff, and the boobies are, doing their foot pattering stuff. But this year, it was even more than the norm. Like the fish just bubbling at the surface, the bait fish.
Oh, wow.
And the number of whales we saw, and also sort of unusual for Galapagos seabirds. I saw my first sooty shearwater I'd ever seen in Galapagos, my second pink-footed, and my first leech's storm petrel I'd ever seen in South America, actually.
Wow.
So,
that's a bunch of unusual seabirds there that you see a heck of a lot of elsewhere. That's pretty funny.
I know. It's sort of funny. But there were also some things you don't see all the time that were out and about, like the bigger numbers than I've ever seen reported of white-faced storm petrels and the whales. I mean, there was a day when we're just multiple blue whales, and these are the ones that migrate to Chile. They're from the Chiloé Island population migrant, but they call intermediate blue whales. It's not the pygmy, it's not the big ones.
These the ones that reach Southern California sometimes, or a different group? Okay,
different group. Yeah, totally different. And we saw, Bruda's whale. That's how you pronounce it, right?
Yes.
That's the one that looks like brides, but it's
right.
pronounced
I remember
Bruda's.
Ned Brinkley correcting me on that some years ago.
Whale. Yeah. We saw a whole bunch of them, and well enough that you could see that the fine level ID features.
Right. They have that like crown, that rostrum pattern, right? It's different. 3 ridges rather than 1 ridge. Common dolphins, offshore bottlenose dolphins. I often don't see a dolphin at all. We'll see maybe one group in the distance, but they were like riding. I was like, it was a wonderland of ocean. Wow.
And the locals were all saying, oh yeah, it's the cold water and the upwelling, and it's, second year of La Nina, and they're looking into like sort of a third year is going to happen. But what's cool, it's here too. Like California is hopping in terms of ocean productivity. It's cold water, masses of fish. Like we're seeing anchovies bubbling up at the surface, all over the place. People are catching salmon like you wouldn't believe. Like the salmon bite that the fishing folks are they get their limit of 2 salmon before 10 a.m. And it used to be, last year they'd be out there maybe all day and maybe catch 1. So, and the whales, there's humpback whales everywhere here. We've had blue whales, and both in both places we saw killer whales too. So it's been crazy, both in Galapagos and California. So it's a real like story of, the ocean can rebound or do its thing. All it needs, it's wind, cold water, currents, everything to line up, and then things just boom.
Pop.
The most, people long timers are talking about, they've never seen this much anchovy here in Central California. ever. Like it's just crazy. So yeah,
Wow.
man. I'll get back to you on killer whales, though. I want to talk, but I want to ask you what you've been up to.
Yeah, man. I have been traveling a lot in the last month. Me and two friends from Philly here, Liam Hart, Patrick McGill, we headed out to North Dakota, Montana, did a week-long scout of a prairies tour. We're gonna run next June, and that was awesome. It was really great. Just like photo ops, open country, just really wonderful birds and good mammals too. Lots of pronghorn and coyote every day, and which is not something I see around here a whole lot. I know people out west see them more often, and prairie dogs and just like badger and just a whole bunch of great birds and mammals, and so that was great, and really looking forward to returning to that trip next year. And then we kind of did a Bismarck to Bozeman run, which is what that tour route will be. We finished up. Exactly. We finished up in Bozeman. We actually we're in Livingston area, Yellowstone area. Left there like 2-3 days before the massive, devastating floods happened. We left just I think 3 days before that all happened. So that was pretty crazy. And then I went down and guided a Hillstar Nature trip in Colorado with my good friend Carl Bendorf, and we had a great trip there. Just a short 5-night trip, hitting Pawnee grasslands, Rocky Mountain National Park, and then took a swing all the way down south for kind of some more desert type birds and ponderosa pine birding. So that was really great. Was home for a short week and then was up to Alaska for a week and a half. Just a tour focused on just 2 spots, Nome and Denali, which was really wonderful. A great group of folks from here in Philly, and yeah, nice weather pretty much throughout. And Nome, is just one of those places that's one of my favorite places in the world. I love to spend
like it.
There's no place like Nome, as the saying goes. Yeah, and it's it's a place I would love to just like spend like every June, the entire month in Nome. So and I know you've spent some time there as well. Look forward to getting back.
Yeah, I do. One of the things that I remember most about Nome that's non-bird related was like rolling in, it's light forever, right? So you're out there and you're doing things. I think we brought the group back in after dinner, and I might have just gone out just to do something on my own, get some pictures or something. And I think I'm getting back in at midnight or whatever it was, and you couldn't tell. It was like bright skies and so on. And there's these little kids playing soccer, like in the middle of the night.
Right.
But it's like the day, right?
Like 12:15 a.m. Yeah.
Playing soccer. And I was thinking like, that's weird, like, shouldn't they be sleeping? Then I was thinking like, man, if you're half your years, you're in the dark, in the cold. Yeah, even the summer, you're just like out doing
go,
especially if you're a kid, So I was like, well, good for them, man.
Yeah,
it's like enjoying the midnight sun.
It's true. Yeah, no, it's tough to stop birding. I mean, like, because it's just so good and so scenic, and the birds are so great there. You've got this, influence of things that kind of just barely get across the Bering Sea from Russia, and then there's mammals there too. There's muskox, just like barely outside of town, and there's moose, and there's always the chance you could see a grizzly bear or even a lynx, and there's snowshoe hares in places, and other
there's
stuff.
Arctic hares there too, right?
It's funny you mentioned that, actually, because I saw our friend Tom Johnson was up there as well with a group, and they actually had an Arctic hare, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, I am pretty sure I saw an Arctic hare leading a tour here with Chris Benish, some years back. I don't remember where it was, And like 2 days later, Tom gets back to me. He was like, I can confirm you had an Arctic hare here in 2008 with Chris Benish, and here are the coordinates. I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. It's like those guys keeping good notes. And so, yeah, they are Alaskan hare actually is the one.
Is that the one? Okay.
Yeah.
These things change names or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember it was called Arctic. Oh, yeah.
I think it might be a split from Arctic hare.
Okay.
I'll have to take a look at that.
You mean people are splitting hairs?
Oh, wow.
Oh, you
I
lined me up for that one.
I just feel like I walked right into that. Wow.
Whoa.
Man. Wow. Pretty good.
Whoa.
Pretty good.
I'll be here all week, folks. Make sure you tip your bartender. So, yeah, I was just thinking that, the hares have that 11-year cycle, right? Like snowshoe hares for some weird reason, like, a lot of the cycles and lemmings and so on are like 3 years, and they have this 11-year cycle. And if you know the cycle in a local place, the lynx numbers go up with the hares.
Yep.
So if you want to maximize your chance of seeing a lynx someplace where they are seen regularly,
which I do want to do. I want to maximize that chance. That is my most
11-year cycle. I think it's like the 3 years. It's
yeah.
sort of year 10, 11, and 12 or something like that are
right.
the key years.
Right.
Because there's a lag, right? Like,
right. I was gonna say it's like a year or two after the big snowshoe hare years, right? It's like,
yeah.
It's like a 1 or 2 year lag, something like that. Yeah.
So, it's we saw lynx once in Alaska on a tour. That was crazy. Got nice photos.
You're a disgrace. My goodness.
But what was interesting, like to me, it was like I was driving. This was Denali Highway, right? So further south, driving with the windows open, listening for birds. I think we were probably trying to find, I don't know, some, we're just listening, whatever. We're probably trying to find a northern hawk owl. And I hear all of this commotion, like all of these birds, like the chickadees, and, everybody's just going nuts. And I'm thinking, that's weird. Like, maybe they got an owl, so I stop, and I could hear like the chickadee group was moving. And then as soon as I kind of hit the edge of the road, the lynx comes out and it crosses the road, and all those birds follow it to the other side of the road, and they kept on. So it's like a good strategy. Just listen for a bunch of like upset birds. I was thinking, wow.
Yeah. I mean, and it makes sense, right? I think we've probably seen them do that with either feral cats or I've seen birds around here do that with feral cats at times, and even with bobcat one sighting I remember. But the one thing that we had on the Denali Highway, which I spent some time on this trip as well, which is, I would argue, I'm sure that there's other examples. This would be actually a good topic for a podcast sometime, is most beautiful roads in the world. And Denali Highway ranks high. I mean, it is. And we drove the whole thing this time, which is the first time I've ever done that. And man, the scenery there is just, I mean, it's gobsmacking for like most of it. It's just beautiful. And we had one day where we had three, it was 24-hour period, but 3 different porcupine that we had crossing the road. And it was sort of similar to what you were talking. The first one I saw was pretty distant ahead on the road. And I was like, oh man. And I could see like some little birds moving around, savanna sparrows, white-crowned sparrows, 1 or 2 other things. There's a lot of Arctic warblers around in places. And I was like, oh man, could this be a lynx? And then I got my bins on it and my binocs on it. I was like, oh, and I wasn't sure exactly what it was at first, but I was like, it's not a lynx. And then I figured out it was a porcupine. But then we saw 2 more, and one other was the same thing. There's birds following it. Like it followed it across the road, and then once it got into the shrubs and stuff and the willows, and you couldn't see the animal anymore, but you could see the birds were just going after it. And I was like, for a cat, it's one thing. You kind of expect that behavior. I'm not sure why for this large rodent, which I didn't actually realize, porcupines are a large rodent. There's the second largest one in North America after beaver. why they were following that, but maybe it's just that it's disturbing bugs that they're getting, or they just like seeing another animal that they could kind of scream at.
I wonder if they could actually be eating nests on the ground if they find them, because they're actually rather omnivorous in summer. Like people in cottage country in Canada, they always complain about the porcupines coming in and causing, eating stuff up. And one of the weird things they eat is they like salt. And
Yes.
if you have like a shovel
Right.
that you've been using and it's kind of salty wood, they just chew up your shovels. And
right. And I've heard about people like leaving boots outside that are like sweaty, boots, and like the porcupine will come in and start chewing on their boots and stuff.
Yeah. So maybe they're up to trouble chewing on stuff, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be.
Pretty. I mean, they're also they look huge at times because their body. Then they have all that stuff sticking out, right?
Yeah,
they can look like a little mini bear,
Yeah, exactly. The first one I saw, I was like, "Oh man, this is going to be a lynx," and I was so like, I got that adrenaline rush, because I'm, nothing for me better than seeing a wild cat, and I was still stoked because I haven't actually seen that many porcupine. I don't spend time in areas where there's that many of them. So to see 3 in 24-hour period was awesome, but it was funny to be like, oh, this could be a lynx, and then be like, oh no, it's a porcupine.
Yeah, in the prairies in Alberta, I remember seeing like porcupines would be in random, like one tree, in the middle, by the edge of a creek, and there's like a barn or something, and the porcupine would be sitting there in this tree like a big ball. They're really easy to see there. I don't know if that's what they like. They don't have forest around. Like they just have these little weedy kind of thickets, and they just seem to make do.
Supposedly they're real smart. They're like supposedly really smart animals. Like I guess they've done some studies where they've like tracked them in mazes and stuff. And that like they put them in some complex maze, and then like 3 months later they put them back in the maze and they just find their way out immediately again. Like they remember how to do it. Apparently they're smart.
Wow. That completely different animal, but I think it was in Colorado. Same, how in the bridges all have like cliff swallow nests, right? Just a lot of that going on.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching this. It's the fox snake equivalent over there, bull snake.
Mm-hmm. Probably bull snake. Yeah.
Bull snake. It's, it's the one that's got different names. I think it's called pine snake, bull snake, not fox snake, but gopher snake. I'm thinking about gopher.
Yeah.
Snakes. Yeah. And then it was like going along the bridge, right? The edge of the bridge, this big old snake, and it like gets a third of the way over, and it just sort of makes like a little turn down, and it goes and eats an egg from the cliff swallow nest. And I was thinking that snake knew what it was doing. Like it's done that before, and it remembers.
Not its first rodeo.
Not his first rodeo. And I was wondering, like, I never thought snakes had a memory,
like some cognition.
Right. You realize that a lot of these animals we see, because we can't relate to them clearly, like that they have all of this stuff going on, and let's call it intelligence, memory, problem solving ability, or just, but all of that has to go together. Like the snake has to know where the bridge is, how to get there, how far to go, what kind of bird it's looking for, what time of year. There's a lot of stuff going on. And I was thinking like, wow, they just have that all set into their memory bank somehow. Crazy.
Yeah. You wonder if in a snake like that, it may actually remember exactly, which nests it has and has not pilfered yet,
Right. Yeah. And that there's those studies on hummingbirds where that you can make a real complex set of flowers that have fake flowers that have or don't have sugar, or which ones they visited, in a captive situation. And the hummingbird knows, like, don't bother with that one. Last time, a few hours you were here and that was an empty flower. So they don't bother. And like the number of flowers is so much that a human could never remember that level of detail of which one to go in and not. But the hummingbirds are like, yeah,
no problem.
No problem. So their memory works in a different way than ours. So it's
Yeah.
kind of cool. I call that smart. you know.
Yeah.
It's not
Some
book
kind of smart. Yeah.
Yeah. It's flower smart.
Yeah. No, it was nice. I mean, these are three these three tours, excuse me, were areas that I've spent considerable time in before, but I hadn't been any of them in a long time.
Yeah.
It was really nice to get back to the tundra in the open country of the West, Rocky Mountains. Can't wait to get back.
Did you see Smith's Longspur?
Did not see Smiths.
Oh,
yeah. In fact,
okay.
we
I
we
think I've
didn't.
told people on this podcast I've never seen a Smith's Longspur ever.
Yeah, that's right. I remember. I think we talked about that. Yeah, there was one spot we considered going for it, but it was going to be logistically complex for us at the time, so did not opted out on that one. But yeah, no, it was awful nice being up there, and like I say, the scenery is tough to beat. Really,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's I really enjoyed time I've had in sort of that prairie region too, like where everything is. And I guess I did lead tours way back, but just being on your own, like just driving random roads and listening for all these birds that are in abundance, like, the long spurs and, overhead pipits and all this kind of stuff. It's pretty amazing. And the raptors and ferruginous hawks and all that. It was just sort of really fantastic birding. And I remember getting great views of Baird sparrows and stuff like that. Just like listening for them. Windows roll down, you stop, look around, and it just sort of seemed like you didn't have to have a plan. You could just go out to some of these places and drive and see great birds, and then little ponds full of ducks.
That's what I like about this, that the way we've, it's just like that, as you say. You just go to nice areas where there's just lots of birds, and sometimes it's fun to zip in and get all those things as quick as you can get them and zip on. Sometimes that's exactly what you want to do. But what we kind of wanted to do is a more immersive prairie experience, as I'm calling it, because that's really what it is. And yeah, it's just, you go there and there's just, it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of really cool stuff. It's, I like open space a lot. For me, these areas are my first real birding experience was on the pothole prairies. Actually, it was, like my dad kind of took us on a family trip up to Churchill, Manitoba, and on the way there we were birding the pothole prairies, and so for me it's like kind of like going home again in a way, even though I hadn't been there a really, really long time. So I'm like, oh yeah, flocks of Wilson's phalaropes and American avocets and California gulls and Franklin's gulls migrating through, and big numbers of white pelicans, and then the prairie longspurs and Baird sparrows, just like high volume birds and open space where there's not a lot of people either.
Yeah, Swainson's hawks.
Yeah,
massive Swainson's hawks.
We had this one minute, and like neither Liam nor Patrick had been out this way before, and I think that like we had this one time where like within an hour we found a female thick-billed longspur incubating on a nest, like just a few feet away, because this male came in like displayed for it. It was like hopping around. I was like, what's he doing? And then I was like, oh my god, there's a female incubating right next to him. And so we like watched that female for a while, which was awesome. All of a sudden, this like prairie falcon rips through it, which we hadn't seen the whole week, in the background. And then we like, okay, we should move on from here. And meanwhile, there's thick-billed longspurs displaying all around us, just doing their flight displays. Go down the road, all of a sudden this badger runs into view. And then like we turn the other side of the road, there's a ferruginous hawk nest with two young on the ground. And like I forget, there was something else even, but we're just like, oh my God, like, all this stuff is right here.
Yeah,
It's just
right
all
here.
right here.
I've had sort of similar experiences with finding, birds like that, and a lot of nesting birds. It's actually really easy to even find like horned larks nesting and all that. But the one bird you never see a nest of is the most common. It's western meadowlark. Never see a nest of western meadowlark.
Yeah,
or eastern meadowlark for that. Yeah, I mean, who has seen a meadowlark nest?
Yeah, it's true.
Really, and they're on the ground just like the other ones, but there's something about them. They don't give themselves away.
And they're the state bird of both those states, of both
really?
North Dakota and Montana. It's western meadowlark.
And everything else in that prairie region seems to have an easy to find. It's like western kingbirds or the hawks.
Yeah, the longspur nests are easy to find.
Longspurs, easy to find. Weird, huh?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, totally different scene here, though. I mean, I've been going out to the Farallon Island, Southeast Farallon Island. And this last time, I think we did four Farallon trips in the last 2 weeks. And last time I was with Peter Pyle, was one of the spotters who's, at one point had spent more time than any other human being on these islands, doing bird research and shark research,
Isn't Southeast Farallon Island like the number one eBird hotspot in the country in terms of species?
Could be.
I think it is, which is crazy when you consider it.
Yeah, it's had, and a lot of those are vagrants, right?
Of course, yeah, but that just shows you what a crazy place it is.
I mean, they've had red flank bluetail and
I'm looking this up as we go.
Middendorf's grasshopper warbler, common rosefin, all these crazy things that nowhere else in the lower
4 Zonotrichia sparrows in a day. Like, remember this?
Yeah, I mean, just crazy stuff. I know, and the eastern warblers.
Yeah,
I think
it's the number one, and it's actually Alvaro. It's for the United States. It's the number one eBird hotspot. And it is
for species,
50, It is, for species. And it is 53 species ahead of the number 2 spot.
Whoa. Wow.
Which is Bosque del Apache. And then number 3 is Cape May Point. So those are number 3. But anyway, I thought folks would get a kick out of that because, I mean, you look at where this place is on the map and you're not thinking high species diversity. But obviously, over the years, this place is legendary.
But I should explain too to people who've never been there that you can't, unless you're a biologist that is working there for multiple weeks, you can't step on the islands. So we visit
off limits,
and from a boat, and we're in sort of looking around at all the birds, the nesting birds, which are, I mean, we're talking 300,000 plus murres are sitting there, awaiting us with puffins, tufted puffins and rhinoceros auklets and all sorts of gray whales around and all that kind of stuff. But it's really interesting to have the experience of somebody who's been there so many times, over the years, and the little details that he thought were interesting. Like,
Peter Pyle.
Peter, he was sort of saying like the murre colony's grown so much. Like when he was there, it was probably under 200,000. Now it's like over 300.
Wow.
But there are parts of the island that are covered in murres now that, 20, 15 years ago were not. That he was showing us how they're growing, like going upwards and sideways. But also the murres were picking up anchovy right by the island, like they were going down and bringing up anchovy. He said that never has really he doesn't remember that anchovies being right at the island where you're right next to the island.
They had to go further offshore from the island.
Right. And then if they were picking up fish nearby, it tended to be juvenile rockfish and other things. But because when I described that there was so much anchovy, they were right by the islands, he was like looking at me like, oh, are you sure it's anchovy? And then when we got there, he was photographing, and he was going crazy photographing anchovies being picked up by, brought up by these murres because it was so unusual. And that was really interesting to me. Like I totally had missed the importance of that because I didn't have context, and so he brings his context, like, wow, this is amazing. And the other thing is that killer whales don't, although there's a lot of food there, they don't hang out by the islands. They never kind of have. There was one time in the past where some killer whales did hang out, but this year there's been a group hanging out. Like they've been seen multiple times over several weeks, and that was interesting. And he said the last time there was a group hanging out, they killed a couple of great white sharks.
Oh my gosh!
And what happened is like the killer whales kill the sharks and eat only the liver, right? Killer whales are really specific about just eating certain parts of an animal.
Wow.
Like, so, and the liver is really high in food content. You know?
Seabirds love, shark liver is famous.
Shark liver.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was odd is that the shark researchers, after these killer whales came in and killed 2 sharks, I think, the sharks were gone for 3 or 4 months. They actually left as if they knew the place.
Like, this is a bad scene.
We're leaving. Which again, it's like, how do sharks know? And he was thinking maybe it's just the smell of shark liver is just a sign, like, leave this place. Something's bad's going on, you know?
Right. Like, they probably can smell, or like a tiny fraction of that in, like, you know, a cubic mile of water or something. Yeah.
Right. And this time around, they've seen this group of killer whales eating sea lions. So it's a different, maybe a different ecotype actually of killer whales. But I did one thing that I've, you know, when I'm just posting about these whales and so forth, I realized that all the scientists that study them call them killer whales, you know, like, and even the groups that are focused on orca call them killer whales. But a lot of sort of whale fans like to call them orcas, I think, because they don't like the fact that killer is sort of such an intense word
loaded,
to use for this
really
word. cool animal.
Right.
But so I'm calling them killer whales because it seems like all the people that study them call them killer whales. But yeah, orca is the other name that some people give them, which is the genus. But they definitely are not, you know, these are not pacifist
these
animals.
Are predatory animals.
Highly predatory animals,
yes.
You know.
Yeah.
And if you're used to the ones in Puget Sound that eat fish, maybe that's a little bit more like palatable because we eat fish and seems like, okay, you know, and they're bigger groups and they're a little bit more chill. But these ones that are called bigs or transient killer whales, it's a different, some people think a different species. They have a different shape, coloration, language, and food type. They eat gray whales. They're known, some pods have been known to kill humpback whales, chase them down and kill humpback whales. And again, it's really odd. Like with the gray whales, they just eat the tongue. It's like, you know, so you start like putting it all together. Yeah, these guys are pretty
specific.
Killer instinct in there.
Yeah,
and also very specific food types. You know,
yeah.
But this group, man, I mean, it may have been 16 to 20 whales in this sort of big pod, and one of them is famous because it's a young whale that's a leucistic one. It's whitish gray, and they call it Frosty. And
Frosty.
It's been seen. It's been seen down in San Diego multiple times, Monterey Bay, and we saw it. You know, and I'm not sure how far north it's been, but this pod ranges all the way, or this sort of set of pods ranges all the way up and down California, maybe even up to British Columbia at times, of this transient ecotype. And so seeing this whole thing was so crazy, and like they were going under the boat doing their stuff.
Oh, so you guys are right on top of them pretty much.
Yeah, the boat was just sitting there and they were kind of coming through and doing their thing. And then they started jumping and twirling in the air, kind of like one of those shows. Oh man, people were moved. I mean, there were tears people just moved by the whole event, you know. So
that's when you know you're really seeing something powerful. So you actually see people break down. Which is seeing that in of itself is a pretty powerful thing. But
yeah. So it's it's just we haven't really started the offshore birding, kind of just go out to the offshore and see what's out and about. But boy, I'm keen on seeing what is out there, because the trips to the island spend a lot of time in sort of more shallower water, and we have a little bit of time to go out into the deeper water, just an hour. But it's already been masses of sheer waters, more than we can remember this early. It's interesting, and there's just so much food. I think it might be an interesting season. But of course, you always think that you're optimist if you're a birder, that
Sure.
It's going to be great. This is going to be the top rate ever. But then sometimes it's just normal.
Yeah. And sometimes it's, it's amazing. Yeah. So we'll see. Well, we'll see. Maybe I'll try to hop a flight and get on a couple of those trips. And in September, when things settle down schedule wise, I haven't been offshore side in a while. Would be nice.
Yeah. No, but the salmon, that's a sign to me too. Like, I mean, there's been a lot of changes in how they put salmon from hatcheries into the water, but the fact that people are not only catching a lot of salmon, they're catching really big ones. So it's, I mean, the local captains have given me some salmon, so I've got like a freezer full of salmon, my friend.
Wow. I'm going to hop that flight. I'm going to hop that flight sooner than I suspect. Then maybe we'll see. Yeah.
But ecotypes, so there's a third one here, right? That's seldom seen, called the offshores, and they hunt sharks. It seems like sharks and these offshore creatures. So we have the ones up north, the residents, fish,
the Puget Sound
transients, transients, bigs, which are California, and marine mammals, and we have offshores. But I gather you once saw in a different part of the world another ecotype that is basically, if you're a collector of whale sightings, this would be like a big one, right?
Yeah. I was lucky enough to not only see but photograph some type D killer whales, and it was kind of funny the way it happened. It was on an Antarctic cruise in 2009, and excuse me, and we were in the Drake Passage. We were on our way back to mainland South America, to Ushuaia, from the Antarctic Peninsula. And, the Drake Passage is famously rough. And I've had it actually be really, really rough and lived up to that billing, and other times being really, really so calm and windless that there was actually fog and you couldn't see anything, which was not ideal.
That's what they call the Drake Lake, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this time though, that we saw these orca, and I tend to call them orca just because it's a shorter word, and I like efficiency. It's like I find it easier to say orca than killer whale, but I don't have any problem with the term because they are predators.
I don't know. Maybe you're snowflakey. That's what's happening. Can't handle the truth, man.
Perhaps. Yeah. But yeah, it was funny. So we saw these orca, these killer whale, and I took some photos, and it was kind of rougher conditions. There were seabirds. I remember there's like white chin petrels in the photos over these guys, and I thought that's awesome. We got really nice sightings of them, and I remember thinking that they looked different. At the time, like we discussed that they must be one of these other types that we weren't really aware of. And then like 3-4 years ago, I was giving a presentation on Antarctica for the cruise, and and one of the guys lived in San Diego, is a good buddy of mine, Adam Wallane, and he has been to Antarctica like 50 times. He's been many times. He's done a lot of cruises there over the years. And he's like, comes up afterwards, and this, like, the last slide I show is of those orca and the Drake Passage, because it's kind of the last thing you do on the trip usually. And he's like, that those orca are type D, right? Those are type D killer whales. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. And he's like, yeah, those are type D orca. Those have hardly ever been seen or photographed. And now I think the first ones that have been documented were like 1955 or something. And they were from a stranding. And if I remember right, it's something like since then there are 7 or 8 documented with photos sightings at sea. And what I didn't realize is that in the time that it elapsed, others who were on that same trip had their photos, sent them to Bob Pittman, who's, you know, the guy who really studies these things more than anybody else, just about. And this sighting had made it into his paper on these animals, which they really think is a different species, and they're different in that they have a different shape to their dorsal. I think it's like a more erect dorsal, if I remember, but they have a tiny little white eye patch over the eye as well.
Yeah, I'm looking them up here. It says that they have a really like long swept back dorsal and also a bulbous head.
Yes,
like
that's right.
More of a
yeah. I knew there was something different about the dorsal, but yeah, I forget that the head is kind of swollen. Yeah.
And then a little tiny, like that little eye patch looks like just a sliver.
Yeah, wow. Little tiny white eye patch.
And they call them here subantarctic killer whale. In this, there's this nice like the ecotype, a picture of all the ecotypes. It's pretty cool, and you probably saw those, what they call type B here is Gerlache killer whale.
That's right.
The ones that are full of the diatoms that make them look yellow.
Yes.
Did you see any of those?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh man. Hopefully we'll see some of this stuff when we
later this year. Yeah.
Woo-hoo. It's going to happen.
It's going to be great.
That's what they tell me.
Yeah, and if people want to learn more about orca killer whales, that Mammal Watching podcast episode with Bob Pittman is really interesting stuff to listen to, and he's got a couple great stories. Al, you were talking about how they hunt cetaceans. I forget which group it is, but
the bigs,
the bigs. Okay,
the transients,
and I think it must have been them that Bob was watching. He told this one story about how they were like watching these orca, and then all of a sudden they picked up and started moving. He was like, "All right, let's follow them." And I think I don't remember the details, but I want to say they followed them for like 20 miles or something. And then these things went to work on like a calf of like a humpback whale or a gray whale or something and just ripped it apart. And he said that all of a sudden you realize that these things, they heard something and they keyed in on it and they went 20 miles and then they attacked this thing and ate it. And you just realize not only like how smart and strategic these are, but how precise they must be to navigate water like that.
Wow. Yeah. They're really fascinating creatures, and they learn, obviously, as being smart. So they probably learn what boats are and, people and all these things. And I know there's a group, have you heard about this out in Portugal that are attacking boats every so often?
Do I want to hear about this? I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit. I'd like to know a little bit more about it, but they apparently like sailboats.
Huh.
They've been like hitting the rudders.
Oh boy.
As if they're like trying to, there's this whole like, if you see it, I think I want to say it's Portugal, but I know the ones in Strait of Gibraltar that people go watch, they're pretty passive. There's nothing going on. It might be just one set of like 3 or 4 individuals that are sort of rowdy that are doing this crazy stuff, and then they're like people, right? There's just some element of individual variation in their behavior, and just there, there's some rowdy ones out there. Fortunately, that doesn't happen. They're free.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like whether it's humans, dogs, bears, killer whales. The concept of a rowdy killer whale is particularly, something to think about if you're in the water. But yeah, I mean obviously there's outliers that can make things problematic.
In Galapagos, our park guide, was sort of joking. He's a really great snorkeler. He's really, and he was like, "Gosh, if we got really up close to group of killer whales, orca, I'd love to jump in with them. I'm like, I don't know, man. I mean, I'd jump in. I'd jump in with a whale shark, no problem. Like I trust those creatures.
Yeah.
They're I don't want to say they're simple, but they're just looking for krill and little fish and stuff, and they're moving along. But it's sort of like all you need is one individual orca to be kind of a little rambunctious and go.
I mean, you could see. I mean, for all the for the obviously orca's like a big dolphin, basically, right? It's like a giant dolphin. But those blackfish, the pilot whales, and the first time I ever saw pseudorca, false killer whales, off North Carolina, I remember seeing a pod of them moving towards us. I think there was like 7 or 9 animals or something, and they were moving towards us. And I was on the bow of the boat, and I picked them up. A bunch of us just saw them all at once. And I remember my first instinct was fear. I remember the first thing I thought was, oh man, like the way those things are moving, I would not want to be in the water,
Right.
And I cannot imagine, being in the water with killer whale orca. No,
I forget which one it is, but it's either false killer whale or melon-headed whale. There's been times when they've acted really aggressively towards divers and stuff, and they're sort of like, watch for these guys. There's one of those that's
they want to steer clear.
As much press as the orcas, but
man.
Fantastic animals. And this whole idea of ecotypes and which is, what are species and what aren't, to me, would you agree with this, George? If there were birds, right? If these were birds and there's 3 different types that have a different essential song and habitat
and
diet, and they overlap, right? Like they're what we call sympatric.
That's a pretty strong set of criteria for different species. Yeah.
Exactly. I'd split these in a
heartbeat.
Heartbeat. But I guess the mammal people are different than the bird people, and different from the plant people and the fungus people, and we all have different ways of
the shell people are the ones you got to watch out for. Those people. I do not trust those people. The shell people,
those
man.
People,
Yeah, the Shell Club meets right before the Bird Club here in Philadelphia, and man, it's been some pretty near dust ups, I'll tell you.
Like the malacologists.
Yes, exactly. Right. They're always telling the bird people to quiet down, and our Bird Club's been meeting there for over 120 years, and I want to be like, we got here first, okay? When you've been meeting here for 120 years, then maybe we can talk.
Yeah,
I know. Shell people, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Shell people.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got the word mal, bad, right?
Yeah, exactly. For starters. Yeah. It's right away. It's pretty suspect.
Send your letters to George, your angry letters. You're going to get like a half shell, a letter with like a half shell, and
oh man. Then
if you don't watch yourself, this could be you.
I'm already in trouble because I went on record this week saying how much I find tomato pie irritating. Tomato pie.
What is that?
Well, it's like an East Coast mid Atlantic thing, but like now, there's a lot of lactose intolerance out there. I understand. I'm sympathetic to it, but I don't feel like it's basically it's pizza without cheese, and it's it's supposed to be an emphasis on the tomato sauce and the crust being really good. But every family gathering party that I go to now, there will be tomato pie, and people will be waxing poetic about how great tomato pie is. And I'm like, sure, it's fine. But like, it's better with cheese on it. It's better with cheese. Like, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So I don't, yeah. Anyway, tomato pie and shell people come at me. Yeah.
That's a regional thing, because I've never heard of tomato pie, but I'll have to say that I am not a good person to ask, because this local spot opened up here that's chicken and waffles, right?
Oh yeah.
And see, you're shaking your head. I'm like, I was like, who would put those two things together? I had no idea that this was a thing. And in fact,
it's legit.
It's it's actually originally a Pennsylvania thing.
That's right.
I looked up.
Is it Pennsylvania Dutch? Maybe I don't remember, but yeah, it's big
exactly.
around here.
And then there's also sort of a soul food fried chicken version, and the original version was more like a stewed chicken version. And I'm like, who knew? Like I just thought this is some wacky guy who decided to do like fried chicken and waffles. Like, what a crazy thing! Like, I didn't know it was like
somebody who already had a few too many edibles and just yeah.
So there you go. So don't ask me about stuff because I don't know. I mean, I know Scrapple. I know that.
Yeah, you do. You do know about Scrapple. That's good. Yeah, it's not too bad. Slice it thin. It's maple syrup. Good to go. Yeah. Well, listen, we could go on about the food. I do. Maybe after we sign off here, I can tell you about the peanut butter sandwich with the kosher pickles I just learned about. But we should probably get going here because the clock. She's a ticking. And
we know we bore people at the 50-minute mark. And
exactly.
We still keep on going. I don't know.
Anybody who's listening now, we really appreciate it. So,
you're the true fans.
So anything else you want the good folks to know about, Al, before we sign off?
Well, if you're coming out to California, there's still a bunch of pelagic trips happening, in August, September that have spaces on them. And it'll be interesting to see what goes down, if we see a lot of abundance continuing or not. And can't ever, I can say that we have a really good chance of finding a whale, if not a lot of whales out there, humpbacks, but killer whales, don't expect you're going to see one because I've talked about them. It's actually a special thing for us to see them. So I don't want to.
Got to have some luck.
Impression. Yeah. But the other day there was probably 100 humpback whales out there.
I was going to say, you're in a good part of the world for cetaceans, and odds you go out there on one of your trips, odds are you're going to see some cool cetaceans of some kind. So
it's hopefully, but that's what. And I'll be out in South Africa for into this month into August, so I'll have some stories to tell after that. I'm going to do a stopover in Qatar or Qatar. I don't know what the locals call the pronunciation, but I'm going to have a day there in the desert. That's going to be cool too.
Nice. So look forward to hearing about this.
Let's see the crab plover. Oof. Love to see that.
That's
kind
a good one.
On my radar.
Yeah, that's a high ticket monotypic family there. That's a great one. Yeah. Very cool.
Say I think I'll enjoy anything there, but seeing crab plover and hoopoe lark would be two of the things that I'm looking for.
Do you know what greater hoopoe lark sounds like? That is a fun one to hear as well. I don't know if you'll be there at the right time of year for that, but it is a pretty insane song. So
I'm going to be there at the right time of year for the hottest temperatures they ever get in that part of the world. So that's saying something for that part of the world. Yeah, I know. I mean, they didn't have the World Cup there in the middle of summer like they usually do. They have to move it to winter because it's too hot for people to play soccer. So
don't get me started on that subject. Yeah. Well, that is awesome. Look forward to hearing about that. Yeah, I would also encourage folks to check Hillstar Nature's site. We're adding more and more stuff all the time, and I'm very excited about this prairies trip we just scouted. I think our trip report, eBird trip report, is on that, and you can see all the photos and stuff we got, and it's a nice, relaxed itinerary with a bunch of birds and some cool stuff to see. But there's a bunch of other stuff too. So
and no climbing hills.
Yeah, not much of that. Yeah, it's pretty much a lot of roadside stuff, and a few trails here and there. But yeah, it's pretty flat. That's for sure. So nice. But thanks everybody for listening, and hope everybody is doing great, enjoying summer, seeing some birds. And Al, I'll see you again soon.
We'll see you, George. Bye-bye, everybody.
Cheers, everybody.